Hi again guys, and welcome to another tank review. Today we're looking at the AMX 65T, and well guys, I'm not going to be very kind to this one because, well, it doesn't deserve it. I'm going to start with the armor. So, frontally, I'm going to start with the hull. I'm going to try and keep this as kind of straight to the point as possible. You've got 100mm of upper hull armor on the main two plates with 90mm on the shoulders there. Your lower plate is 110mm and your driver's hatch is 60. On the side of the hull you've got 80mm and on the rear you have a solid 60. So the front armor. Oh, this is the only part of the front of the the only part of the hull where I really have any problem. Because if I go back to the visual model here, you can see that it's a bit of a pike nose, right? So you think, okay, just point it forward, you get the most effectiveness out of it. Well, no. Put bluntly, the only parts of the front that have any useful armor on them, on the hull, are the shoulders, because they're at a slightly better angle than the rest of the upper plate. The driver's hatch is a weak spot as well. And your lower plate, funnily enough, at most angles, is actually more effective than the whole upper plate. So basically this means that everything tier 6 and up will, especially if they're firing APCR, will just go through your hull front like butter. Especially if you're angled like this, yeah, tier 6s will just, yeah, they shouldn't have any trouble penning that with AP a lot of the time. So there's that. And then, if they fire APCR, it's just gonna go through like butter, or premium, if it's heat, for example. It'll probably go through. Any tier 6 and up will just absolutely chew through this armor on the hull. And you would think that it's aimed at being, you know, kind of like a weird French hybrid between the IS-3 and the T29 in terms of design choices. But no, it's not. Because this hull is the same as the 5120, which, you know, that tank's not known for having armor. That tank's known for being mobile and having a 4-shot autoloader for, you know, 1200 damage. This thing, you've got a choice of, I'll get to the gun choice soon, but basically the 5120, you know you're going to be using your mobility. That's the whole strength of that thing. The 65T, you can't, like, you don't have the mobility, so the armor being paper, you have to fight in a lot of situations where you have to rely on your armor, and you just can't with this thing, especially the hull. The turret's not as bad. There are some strong points on it. Mostly, if I go to the collision model again, this plate here that's 220, and then you've got a little 180mm part there. The gun mantlet's not too bad, but it's got some parts where tier 9s and 10s, especially if they're firing premium, and if some tanks hit the right spot, tier 6 premium ammo will also go through. The sides, when you're pointing your turret towards your enemy, are actually not that bad, but then you've got this chin here, so you, looking at this, you think, okay, that's not very effective. But at first glance, before you look at an armor reader like that, you look at this. This is what you're looking at here. This is the part that I was pointing at, this 80mm plate, before this little chin here. You look at the angle and you think, that's a pretty good angle. And if you're above someone, it is. But for a lot of engagements, you're not high enough above people to really, well, have that work. And to add to this, you've got 2 cupolas. Which, yeah, they're 200 effective, basically. We're all in, like, some parts where things can bounce, like right here. And if, there, yeah, there. And then, obviously, like, some lower tier stuff will bounce off here and here on this cupola. But they're they're going to show before your gun does if you're poking a ridge line to try and use your turret armor on your gun depression. And tier 8s and 9s will, well, they'll just yeet through your front with premium anyway, so, well, at least a lot of them will. Some won't. The lower pen ones, like for example, well, just another AMX 65T really, won't really yeet through the front of the turret too easily, if it's only, you know, this part and this part that they're shooting at. But they will still lull pen your cupolas, they'll still lull pen here if they're not too low. And they'll lull pen your entire front. The only time where your front is any use at all is at this kind of angle. So then you can make your driver's hatch an auto bounce. This entire part of the pike nose an auto bounce. And your lower plate, you know, a solid, what, 250, 260. Basically, the only chance you're going to have here is if you're poking out, like, if you're able to hide the massive rest of your hull, like, round a corner or behind a wreckage of a tank or something. That's the only good part there. So yeah, armor. Mediocre to trash. Okay, what about everything else? Well, I'll start off with the gun. You have two choices on this tank. You either have a 120mm gun or a 100mm gun. Both of them. The funny part is, actually, is that the 100mm handles worse than the 120. The 120 is actually not that bad on handling. Sure, your soft stats are not great, but they're not so bad that it actually, you know, makes it awful to aim. The only basically the real downside of the 120mm versus the 100 is the pen, really. That's all you're looking at here. And sure, you do lose a little bit of DPM with the 120, but you're hitting for 400, so you trade a bit more. So obviously, 400 versus 300, you're gonna trade more. 218 pen on AP and 252 on premium with the 120mm. Rate of fire is not great at 4.35 rounds a minute before any. Well, that's just with 100% crew, so no extras, no food or equipment or anything. But what's weird is that the aim time stat is better on the 120mm. It's a 3-second aiming time on the 100mm, which is actually why it seems to handle better than the 100mm. One other nice thing about the 120 is that it has better shell velocity versus the 100mm. 100mm has 1000 meters a second shell velocity on AP, and on APCR you're looking at 1250, which is pretty nice. But on the 120mm, you're looking at 1067 meters a second on AP, and 1334 on APCR, so shell velocity, firing at range. You're probably still better off, well, for hitting things you're better off with the 120, for penning things you're better off with the 100mm, but to be fair, there are a lot of situations where the pen will do just fine on the 120mm, to be honest. 40 rounds ammo capacity with the 120mm, which is not too bad. 60 with the 100mm, so you should have plenty ammo to work around with. Moving on to mobility now. Top speed 40 kilometers an hour, 15 in reverse, 1100 horsepower per ton, and a power to weight of 16.92 before equipment. Which doesn't sound that bad, but yeah, the soft stats on this thing are ass! So yeah, expect to go very slow everywhere. I think I averaged something like 30 kilometers an hour going most places when playing this tank. As for gun depression and elevation, you've got a solid 8 degrees of gun depression, which is fairly comfortable. You can work decent ridges, but of course you've got to bear in mind that your turret armor is trash, especially since you've got those two gigantic cupolas on the top as well, which will always show first. Gun elevation is 13 degrees, which is also terrible, which is a bit of a feature with the French tanks. That's fairly consistent with them, particularly if you look at the autoloaders, since they can't really elevate and depress their guns particularly much either. Turret turns, 26.25 is not too bad. Well, 26 degrees a second isn't too bad, because of course it's shown here on the turret traverse stat. So, you know, you can reacquire targets decently quick. You've got 1550 health, which is right around average for a tier 8 heavy. Your modules are actually fairly strong. Your engine actually shouldn't get... I never had my engine damaged too much. Same with my fuel tanks. And your ammo rack's not likely to get damaged, to be honest, with this thing. I never had mine break particularly often. It was quite rare in this tank compared to a lot of others that I've played at tier 8. One thing this tank is actually surprisingly good at is baiting shots with the tracks, because, well, those are big tracks, so they have a lot of health before they break. So obviously every shot has module damage on it, and the more like the lower caliber shells have lower module damage, so therefore take more shots to, you know, break a module. In theory, of course, you know, I mean, due to RNG, it can vary, but that's a discussion for another time. View range, 370 meters, which is workable. You will need to get, you know, your optics, for some reason, tanks.gg is not working for me fully to show equipment effects and all this, but you should be able to get at least 445 with just your crew skills and your optics, because you will want to run a gun rammer and vert stabs on this. And radio range of 750 meters, which doesn't really matter all that much. So, moving on to the match here, we're on Lakeville. This was the very first match I played, and it's the only decent one that you're gonna... It basically shows the kind of situation that you want to get into, and really shows where this tank holds its own. And you're gonna see something rare from me. You're gonna see me going Valley on Lakeville. It's a miracle, I know. But the reason for this is because, well, I'm top tier. Most of my team seem to be either camping or going to the city, so I figured, well, just to make sure the enemy team doesn't just YOLO down here, I can use my gun depression. I'm top tier, so I can bounce a couple of shots, and there's only one artillery. So I figured, I'll go here, and I'll see what I can do to slow down any push. Unfortunately, my team has already lost our T37 on the other side of the map there. He went to F7 there, got spotted by the SU-100M1 and died. Friendly T-3485M spots the Lerva, so I decide that I'm just gonna wait. Because that Lerva, well, yeah, he's not exactly arty safe, so yeah, he's dead. Meanwhile, T-3485M gets taken out by the IS-2 there. Firefly VC just a little bit behind the IS-2. And there's also a Tiger 1 here. Tiger 1 shoots my turret, bounces. I tried to take a shot there, but no idea where that went. And now I move myself to position behind the wreckage of the T-3485M. So, if I can get out of here, this is the kind of position that you want to be in, where you're able to basically show... Basically, all they can see when I'm poking over... Whenever I'm poking over enough for them to get a shot, this is what they see, and then the turret. So, that Tiger 2 and the IS-2, yeah, you can see that the Tiger 2's already resorted to HE. He has the top gun as well, by the way, so he's got better pen than this IS-2. This is, like I say, this is the kind of situation you want to get yourself into, where you're fighting tanks with not the greatest pen. Maybe you're, like, roughly, you know, 200 to 240, 250 pen. Lerva fires some AP at our turret, bounces once again. Tiger bouncing APCR now off of our turret, which is around 237 pen. And then the Firefly just decides that he's had enough of this world, and we just, yeah, put him out of his misery. Meanwhile, the team's not exactly doing well on the rest of the map. We've lost 3 tanks already. And I'm just taking a shot on this IS-2. Very sneaky one underneath the turret of the T-3485M, so I show the minimal amount of my tank. Bounce the return shot as well. Already racked up just over 2.3k damage. Team, meanwhile, are sort of keeping the scores even on the other side. Tiger 1 forgets that, well, his hull pokes out for a little bit, so just bop him in the face for a nice high roll there. While our friendly IKV 90B, yeah, thanks buddy. I mean, gigantic French baguette over here, and you somehow managed to hit the biggest tank in your team. Okay then. But I realized it was an accident, so it's fine. Now trying to start taking shots at the Leva and the IS-2 now that they're slightly out of position here. IS-2 tries to take a shot at the Cupola with AP. That would not likely have penned with AP, because the Cupola is around 190 effective. And then just pull forward after I've reloaded, finish him off. The Leva's running away. Now position myself, do this exact same thing again. Hide most of my hull with the Tiger wreckage here, only showing, in this case, my right hand side of the upper plate, so then if they try and shoot that, it's an auto bounce angle, or at least so strong that they can't pen it. P43 Ter, I mean, he's just sitting there, so we're gonna take those shots. He does take a shot back at us, but no, I mean, we were expecting it to bounce, so it is what it is. And now we start seeing the first misplay. Now, because I didn't know that the E25 wasn't spotted until then, because I hadn't realized he's firing full APCR at our hull. And you remember me showing you guys that the hull on this is absolute trash. Well, yep, that goes through like butter, as you can see. And that's not one of the higher pen guns that you're going to face from Tier 7. But fortunately for us, he only puts 2 shots in, and then our KV-2 just obliterates him. Leva, meanwhile, has decided that he'd had enough of bouncing AP off of our turret, so he's now firing APCR and goes right through with that 290 pen that he has on that gun. Now moving forward to try and help this IKV. We put another shot into the side of the Leva turret there. ARL V39 has popped up now as well. He's going to be a problem also, but I decide I'm just going to take the hit from the Leva and finish him off. I know I can take a hit from the ARL if I have to. Unfortunately, he does get a shot on our, I think that was our Apollo actually, with APCR once again. You're going to find this a lot, that yeah, you're going to get, if you get gold spammed, you're probably going to get penned regardless of what tank you're facing, unless they're absolutely stock. We do take a shot at the ARL V39 Cupola, but no idea where the shot went. It was pretty much fully aimed. Maybe some server derp memes there. RT meanwhile takes out our IKV. KV2 misses him, but we finish him off. So now all we need to do is take care of the ARL V39. Unfortunately, our game is about to end. Spoiler alert. While we will get the ARL, there is also a Firefly there on full health. And so this actually makes it a bit of a problem. 2 full health tanks versus no full health tanks. And the box tank decides that instead of shooting the Firefly, he tries to shoot the ARL. And so we're basically trying to do the same as what we were doing before. Hide behind the Rex and then try and take shots. But I mess up my positioning here. And yeah, APCR through the upper plate, and we are out with 6,000 damage and 1151 assistance. So I'm just going to fast forward this here because, well, I'm going to, spoiler alert guys, this is going to be a game of throws right here. While the KV2 does take out the Firefly, this SU is going to start throwing. Yeah, he decided that the best thing he could possibly do is go straight through the middle, where he's got no concealment and his tank is wasted. KV2 tries to take a blind shot, which is a fair play to him. He does know where they will be. Unfortunately, the SU just YOLOs in and dies to 2 tanks. I tell the KV2 to just chill, and if they rush, they'll go one at a time, which I am correct on, but unfortunately, not enough of a gap for the KV2 to reload. And so, yeah, here we come to the end of my first game in the AMX 65T. First game ace. On a defeat. Ace tanker, cool-headed. Massive high caliber here. Look at this. Absolute insane damage for this tank. But unfortunately, I messed up my positioning and I got fucked for it. I think if I'd been a bit more patient with trying to kill the Firefly, then the KV2 could have taken the hit, and then I could have just plopped one into the front of the Firefly, and it would have been GG. We would have been able to win there because the SU could have spotted, and then I would have been able to finish off the actual one-shot tanks, the TVP and the SU. But alas, not this time. So of course, like I say, 6,000 damage, 4 kills. It says 1082 base XP, but of course that gets buffed up for Courageous Resistance to with an extra 586, so our base XP actually went over 1600. And with the winter boosters, we made hella credits with a non-premium tank. Bear in mind, this is with a premium account, and the reward for the extra credits that we get for the winter ops boosters, and an extra bit of credits for courageous resistance, because of course we are just pulling a monstrous result there for this tank, and of course just under 4k for that shot from the IKV. So yeah, you probably won't see too many matches like this in the AMX 65T. This was a bit of a perfect storm sort of thing. This is the kind of match that you not necessarily in terms of matchmaking, but in terms of how the match plays out overall, this is the kind of thing that you want. But I will say that this tank, man, it needs some buffs. Needs some buffs. And to be honest, the gun is fine. The gun is fine. I can deal with the mobility, I can deal with the view range, I can deal with the gun depression. All this tank needs, I would say, is a little bit more frontal turret armor. Basically make it like a French T29. So it has a terrible hull, but it's got a baller turret. So like either buff the shit out of these cupolas or just remove them, and then buff the front of the turret, and then we've got a good tank on our hands. Maybe not an OP one, because of course the pen is kind of and the view range isn't amazing, and the mobility's not great, but at least it'll be pretty good. And that's all from me for this one, guys. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you on the next one.